So today I'm kind of combining the genre and the language of the previous two films and watching one film, obviously, instead. But kind of combining anyway. I don't know how much of a similarity it is. So this is I mean, not quite combining, I'm just, in any way, it's also subtitled, so, combining in that sense. Is Korean, not Japanese. And it's a horror movie instead of a simple drama about daily life. Although I don't need to return to that, but that's really better enjoyed over time, not binge watched or anything. Horror on the other hand, it depends on it being binge watched. I mean, obviously there's still a thing about exposure and such, but I don't think it makes that much of a difference. So I'm gonna begin this and see what it's like. With regards to logos, well, there was one with a ship, although it looked like well, they must have intended it to look old at least. So that was sort of mediocre, but interesting still. At least there was a ship and sea and such. There was also another one which obviously used both of them used computer generated imagery, I suppose. Uh, where the other one is more cute with some ball with a face or something and a box. But somehow the name somehow sounds like shoebox when it's spelled showbox. So I'm not entirely sure why that is. It's one of those that has a lot of credits at the beginning. I was hoping most films stopped that practice some time ago, but I'm assuming that might be just Hollywood. I suppose. Nice eerie music though. So yeah, asking a ghost what will be on some final test is a great question, very pertinent. By the way, this is I'm not sure if I even said the name of this movie. I kind of think I forgot. It's Dead Friend. Now, from afar, it almost looks like Dear Friend because that's normally what is said. Uh, you know. I've never personally, I think I've read Dead Friend those two words together before, so Dear Friend is more like it. But anyway, that sort of adds to the eeriness, I suppose. Although apparently it's also called The Ghost, and I really like the title and how it's done. It's underwater. It's quite a good place to put the title in. Also, why is hair so considered such a horror trope in mostly Asian countries, not so much elsewhere? But it really always is. I mean, I've seen a few other films of it. I think The Ring had it. The other film about vengeance had it as well. What was it called again? I'm not sure. Forgot now. Yeah, admittedly, hair is an odd thing, growing on in one place and differing from any other sort of hair anywhere else. And but is it horrific? I don't know. It just is, isn't it? Some sort of weird artifact. I like how the, she compared memory to memory that is forgotten and retrieved later. That is to a an umbrella that is newly found on a bus, and then straight afterwards, the bus comes into shot from the back. It's an interesting juxtaposition. By the way, despite being neighbors, Korean and Japanese are really different, aren't they? I mean, they, yeah, I can understand a few words in Japanese, but not a single word in Korean. And I assume that um, Hide Your Hair song is similar to the Kagome song in Japan. They tend to be these eerie children's songs. It relies quite a bit on shocks, which isn't as I've mentioned in the last movie, I think. Uh, I don't consider it proper horror, but you know, obviously it becomes diminished over time as incidentally, um, Mother of Tears only had like a single maybe shock, which makes it more powerful, I suppose. This is unexpected, whereas this one has them regularly every so often, and so none of them are really outrageously shocking in the end, especially as time goes on, and sort of loses potency. I don't know if filmmakers know this. They really shouldn't, do so much of the same thing. Repetition really wastes away in the end. I mean, shocks are normally a sort of a poor narrative, an excuse for a poor narrative. This this dead friend still has an interesting narrative, I suppose. It's about memory and slowly building up a picture, sort of reminiscent of Memento. A very relevant connected words, aren't they? Reminiscent, Memento, and such. Anyway, well, we'll see where the story goes, but every so often there's these bumps of shocks which they could do less of. By the way, kind of like how they got a shot of the bus from the back. They also got a shot of the protagonist's house from the back, and it's the car is quite nice as well. It's all green and stuff, but it looks quite natural. Also, the when they were watching the movie themselves, I'm not sure what it was. I'm not sure if it was some other kind of logo, but it seemed like it might be some creative logo. Either way, it was quite interesting. There was some sort of globe in outer space. It seemed to be animated. The rest of the film felt not entirely sure it was. Yeah, but the only thing that scares heaven in their favor is that they play with this idea of shadows and peripheral vision and such. I guess if they come from out of the picture, then that defeats the purpose. But otherwise, it's sort of interesting in the sense that one can sort of be in such a state if one has an overactive imagination, even in you know in one's own house or such. Uh, but otherwise, they are not. There's still not a subtle way to really translate all of this. Yeah, this. I mean, I suppose there is an element of ex- existential fears, but it's not quite. I mean, when when there is an existential fear, it doesn't it isn't due to some fright. It, usually it's more long term and systemic than that, not a sudden instance. By the way, I like the lullaby. I mean, most of these sort of stringed tunes are nice, but this lullaby is as well. Um, yeah, yeah, there's also some sort of voice in the background which adds an interesting effect to it. Also, as anyone will obviously notice, water is quite a theme in this movie. There's water everywhere. I guess one can only speculate as to what really happened even before it's shown. But reminds me of this other revenge movie as well. I think it was Japanese, so uh, Kujo or something. I forgot. But it's Ju-on I'm thinking of, also known as The Grudge. Uh, and apparently there's a series, but I've only seen a single movie of that. So yeah, there's a lot of I suppose grudges are a perennial topic in horror movies, considering that usually the result of that is sort of a horrifying end or such. You know, one interesting thing that it seems like, um, I'm not sure if this is generalizing or not, but perhaps the difference between Eastern horror films is supposed to, suppose, like recently I watched the Three Mothers trilogy, and well, I suppose Italy is in the West, kind of, but um, most Western horror films seem to be explicit about violence in particular. Eastern horror films tend to be slightly more subtle. I mean, okay, scares aren't that subtle, but with regard to the violence itself, they seem to show the after effects, not so much the actual things happening. Although, yeah, basing this off just this one, I guess. I mean, I I actually haven't watched another Eastern horror for some time. I have watched in the past, so I don't remember as much violence as like the Three Mountains trilogy. Most Western horror films seem to be explicitly violent. Well, I finished it and it was interesting. It's not that it wasn't. Obviously, there were still loads of horror tropes. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of brute force violence, which is positive really. Until the end of this, but that was relatively minor, at least in comparison to the Three Mothers. Anyway, really seriously minor. Okay, those reveled in extreme violence for short periods. Yeah, it was interesting. It dealt with amnesia and possible culpability and such. There was a touching moment connected with the ocean, uh, but at the end it became a slight bit too labyrinthine, really. Unnecessarily so, I thought. I mean, it didn't didn't make that much sense. But then and then at the end, it wasn't even mentioned at all with regards to identity and such. And yeah, yeah, the lecture was appropriate, I suppose. It was talking about identity, yeah. Otherwise, though, they didn't go into great depths about amnesia, but they sort of implied some things anyway. Yeah, it wasn't bad as a horror movie. I certainly liked it more than the Three Mothers. Three Mothers mostly just you relied on color a lot. At least the first two did. The last one was just mostly sexuality. So yeah, I'll watch more Eastern horror movies in the future.